So everybody, today we have a very special guest. His name is Michael Humblet, and Michael is the founder of KeyOmatic. Basically, he's obsessed with designing, building, and scaling sales engines focused on unlocking and maximizing revenue growth, trusted by over 215 companies at the moment. He's also a startup mentor. And basically, right now he's in his new house. So his environment is quite funny. But welcome, Michael. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for inviting me. And sorry for the background picture, but that's life. Things move. And by the way, I think it's a very good image because if I look into all the companies I help, most of the time they always build this nice facade. We say it's French word meaning it's nice from the outside, but each time when I go in, it looks like this, a big, massive construction site. So even I tell to startups and scale-ups that, listen, when you're looking at these big companies, you always think it looks really nice what they do. But I tell you, inside, it's a mess. So don't worry. Start building the facade, start building the front, and people follow you, and then you can fix the rest.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe you can give us some background info into what exactly is KeyOmatic and how do you actually help build, because you focus on B2B SaaS companies, so maybe we can start there.
Yeah, most of the time it's B2B, so I do lots of models. Mostly I focus a lot on really scalable models, which most of the time comes down to SaaS, software as a service, and then there are some service models. So what I did was for 20 years I was a sales guy myself, but I did every title that exists. So sales rep, sales manager, sales director, VP of sales, chief rep. I did them all, which is very impressive when you're in a bar, but at home I still have nothing to say, right? So and then after 20 years doing that, I kind of got bored because things move slowly. And looking at sales, I always got frustrated because I always saw two patterns. Pattern one was that I never had enough leads to be statistically on the safe side. And pattern two was deals move slowly, very slowly. But while I watched B2C, I saw deals moving very fast. So I was thinking there must be a way of applying B2C techniques in B2B. Because if you see into the sales world, the audience, our prospects have fundamentally changed. So I don't believe in B2B, I believe in B2B2C because we are selling to people in companies. So I started testing that and very quickly it ran out of hand. So very organically, my hobby became my work, which, those are the passionate people, the crazy ones. And I have a sales strategy consultancy. So we do a lot of sales strategy that focus on two things, building a lot of leads, like how do you build the funnel? And two is how do you set up the machine? Because every sales machine has two parts. One is fuel. You got to pour in the fuel. And two is the machine needs to run. And the running of the machine is the people, the setup, the KPIs, all that stuff, but also simple things like the perfect sales pitch. Every single time. And I tell you, it's crazy. I helped over 220 companies now. Every single time I have to fix a sales pitch. You know why? Very simple. They all do one thing wrong. If I want to sell to you, I should talk about you, not me. So everybody, please, as of today, stop talking about you. If you want to sell, you got to talk about the other side, right? And it's very hard to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the same problem as a sales guy. I never had enough leads. I was like, how can I solve this? So I started my own lead gen company. Now I'm a marketing agency, but it's
how it goes.
A big problem because I'm dealing with the fuel now, but there are systems broken in my clients' businesses where it's sometimes too broken. So maybe you can give us some insights into what kind of models are there for a B2B company to scale. Let's say you have, there's a direct model, there's indirect model. What have you seen in your career to work?
So first two things. One thing, something we all do wrong, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna agree on this one, is that when we start a company or when we build our website to get leads, we aim at our own company. So we say, this is the company who exists 20 years, all the features and that. And we should do it the opposite. We should start with something that attracts, that inspires or educates, and then you build your website around it, right? That's number one. Goal of your website is to get emails. Forget branding for a while, get emails, then you can funnel. You know all about this. So what do I see? Most of the times, most businesses try at first to do an indirect model. A lot of them go into partners and all of that, but they forget one thing. It's already hard to get to an end user. It's going to take you between 9 to 18 months. So if you go to a partner, you then have to double the time because, of course, you get scale. But on the other hand, you have to go to them and then convince them and then go with them to the part. It's an endless model. So I always think the real true power is the end user. So try and go to the end user. If you're successful there, partner models will flow very much automatically. Look to the big players, the SAPs, the IBM, the big beasts. They'll always have a piece going directly, always, because they want to stay in touch. And then the rest they'll try and build out in an indirect manner. That's one. Two, the way you set up your sales team fundamentally needs to change. And the reason is a very simple one. If you think about fuel and you think about prospecting, so what do most companies do? The following. They want to grow, they hire a sales. What does sales do? Prospecting, lots of time, email calling, meetings, and third one is closing. But I pay an expensive sales guy for the closing. I don't pay him for the prospecting. And the problem is, what happens is that most people think, the new sales guy comes in, or girl, doesn't matter, starts phoning, and then you build up a pipeline. I'm going to make some visuals. You build up a pipeline, so lots of, and the first qualification, then you start doing the meetings, and then you start doing the quotes. You see, nice funnel. Reality is not that. Because as you move through that funnel, you actually spend a lot of time building the quote, doing the meeting. So your funnel doesn't look like this thing. It actually looks like that. See? And you get a gap, and that is the fuel. So when you set up your sales machine, I don't advise people to start with the sales. I advise them to start with inside sales or sales development reps, depending where you live, American. Because one, you can hire two for the price of one sales. You focus them on outbound. Depends how you set up your business, right? Long discussion, but most of the time I like to build an inbound model where the pieces of the inbound you use to do outbound, right? Give you one example. I was in helping a learning platform. We built type of a survey for learning managers. That was their persona. We put it on the website. We had lots of traction. And then I said, okay, now we have that. We know it works. We're going to use that proactively to generate leads, to basically go out and use it as an outbound mechanism, right? It works really, really well. So where was I? Yeah. So the inside sales actually fundamentally get the prospecting role. And what I always say to the people is, listen, the moment you start getting 4 to 6 meetings a week, depending on the business you're in, but most B2B companies that have a bigger ticket, they will do 4 to 6 meetings. So the moment you start getting that amount of meetings, then you start hiring your sales because they can hit the ground running. Yeah. See, you don't lose the momentum and you keep pouring the fuel with the inside sales. By the way, always hire two. People do why? Well, it's simple. If it works well, so you have one onboarding time, one onboarding cost, but if it works well, you get enough leads, you pay them automatically. If it doesn't work well, one of them will probably go away after 3-4 weeks. You see that pattern coming over. So always try and hire two if you can with inside sales. Sales is a different topic.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So maybe
condense it, right?
Yeah, the first thing you mentioned even in the beginning, talking about the client, not about yourself. I see this all the time, and it doesn't have to be the website, even cold email. Like if people send an email talking about their company, why don't you spend time on researching the company and just talk about them? I mean, it's such an easy way to do that in whatever funnel stage you are. And then the website, we always have to build landing pages for a specific type of client, because it's like the homepage is like super generic. So I think that's also one piece of that. But you mentioned hiring salespeople. That's also like a big mistake I see, because if they don't have leads, they just waste time on prospecting.
Exactly.
Which is not their job. And to be honest, you're paying somebody, one account executive is sometimes even $100,000, and like they shouldn't be prospecting. Like that's not the right way to think about it. So if you don't have leads, I mean, why are you hiring salespeople? They're not there to generate leads. So you've specified outbound and inbound kind of lead gen, let's say, model. So how does a company start generating leads? Because I think that's the beginning. Do you try outbound first, or how does that work?
So if you go a step back and if you really think what happens when your house is on fire, you will do everything to get a fire extinguisher. So most of the deals that being done is we're all shooting at the people that their house is on fire with a big problem. Mm-hmm. But that's why you have the conversions of 1 to 2%. Because how shitty your website is, they'll still buy, right? Or even how badly packaged your product is. But the big goal is who's sitting out there. So if you really think about it, people come to you to buy when they want you to solve their problem. So they want you to basically, as a service, solve it. Mm-hmm. But you're only capturing the 2%. I want you to widen the funnel to get earlier. So how do people move? Well, the first step most people want is inspiration. Inspire me, tell me, show me, explain this to me. And most of the time, people love to read people do blogs, podcasts, all of that. It's pure inspiration, what you're doing, actually. And it creates a lot of attention. It also creates trust. But the big trick, one of the psychology I've seen is I love this survey type of concept. And you know why? People like to compare themselves to others. Where am I sitting in the ranking? And the reason why that works really well is that because if we say we're going to sell, as a sales, we need to talk to the executive. But you're not getting there easily. So why don't we shoot in the midfield? Because they will want to have a career, and it's them that will focus on getting to the exec and say, listen to this guy, he's the expert, and we're there in the ranking of that. So that's one, inspiration. After the inspiration phase for me, the next thing happens is like, I like what you're doing. I see the material. I think I can do it myself. Everybody thinks in the beginning, if I have enough time, I can do it myself. So there you go to what I call education. In marketing, you have awareness, all of that. I call it education. And education is teach me. Tell me how to do it myself. And the reason why that works well is because people don't always realize the problem. Those who really understand the problem will buy. So what you should do with education is what you're doing. A podcast, a use case is a very good example to create trust. A webinar, events, all of that stuff. So what I think to build up your big fuel machine is you start with inspire, you move to the educational part, and then you will sell your solution basically, because that's where you are. So that way you're going to make your funnel way broader. The other thing that you can do, you heard me talking 3 steps. I believe in a concept called value ladders. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Value ladder concept. Yeah. I believe that value cannot be given with one thing. You build it up. And that is how you align sales and marketing. That's where a lot of problems come around, because marketing needs to build a value prop. They have no clue. So they read something of McKinsey or Gartner, and then they say, that's it. I don't believe that. I believe your sales are with your customers the whole day. I think you should teach them how a value ladder works. That's what I do. And then I say, and now you're going to come up with titles, problems, all debate. Let's think of it together. And then, of course, marketing executes. So if I give a KPI to a marketing team, it's not the classic SEO conversion. I always give a quantitative one, which is, I want you to produce bait. So much bait, we all go sick. And if you look at the companies like a HubSpot and all these big players, they are extremely well in producing a lot of bait, which always circles around the problems. But the second thing they do, and that's for me the sales trick, is you always have to give choice. So when I give something, or I do my cold email, or I do my cold call, most people always say, okay, this is what I want you to do. But if I tell you what to do, you're going to hate me. Human behavior says you will do the opposite. So I will always give you choice. And the choice is always the same. The choice is, this is what you asked for, or this is the next step. But if you want a shortcut time, talk to the expert. Look to any cold email you get from HubSpot or any of these companies. They're pretty good. They're pretty decent size scaling. They always do that technique. So they use this value ladder to always be upselling. Wherever you touch the ladder, they will get you to the next level. And eventually, when you're ready to buy, they'll have you.
I think you also touched on, I think you're talking about enterprise sales, right? Because you mentioned
this works for mid-layer also, mid-layer to enterprise. If this actually, by the way, what I just explained is a B2C technique. It comes from the guru funnels, they call it, and you can apply that perfectly in B2B, and it scales really, really fast.
Yeah, I think one huge concept is to break the mindset of, I'm just selling to people who have problem, because that's what we have to explain as well. Like, hey, this is all about building trust, especially if you sell complex solutions. Like, our clients don't sell SaaS, so they sell complex IT. So it's a huge projects, and like these things cannot be sold through an email. And so we give them the foot in the door, but there's a ton of follow-up and it takes months to close.
Of course.
And so that concept of like, okay, this is a qualified lead. Maybe at the moment there's not a immediate need in a way that they have a specification ready and we can jump in. But if you keep following up, if you keep kind of after the meeting educating them with whatever it is, like we use case studies a lot, then you're gonna be the first choice if in 2 or 3 months they decide to, build out their, whatever backend system. So Yeah,
One
I
of the
think
things
that's the
that works.
mindset that many founders don't have. I think
Yeah.
that's like the biggest thing I see every day.
I had a very interesting. I also have a YouTube show, and I was doing interviews. And there was a guy. He was a VP of sales, running 3,000 salespeople, and he said to me something very intriguing. He said, "Listen, Michael, if I do an interview, at the end I always ask one question, and that question defines if I hire the person or not. And the question was the following: love to win or hate to lose?" And he looked at me and he says, "What would you pick?" And I said, "Well, I would say hate to lose. I don't give up. I'm like extremely consistent. I keep chasing because it's like I just gotta get them." And I think it's one of the best qualities because it's the consistency that makes people trust you. It's when things go bad. It's when things that you can really rely on somebody. One of the big tricks I also do is, for instance, I would go back to somebody after a month and say, "Hey," my email subject line, "Hey, I have been thinking about you." Try not to open that. Huh? So you'll open it and then it would be something of value. Hey, I was at your competitor. I was doing this, I that. Here is a use case. Here is something very personal. And I keep that up. And eventually, the tension internally of them builds up because I've learned one thing in sales: you cannot put pressure. They put pressure on themselves. The tension builds up and you'll be the first they reach out to you. And your negotiation will completely be different. But you don't have short-term sales. It's got a time to build up, but once you get there, it's the machine runs.
Yeah, we use actually, I think you know Gerald from SalesFlare. And
Yeah.
so we use his SalesFlare to automate some sort of follow-up sometimes.
Yeah.
So each 2 weeks, I think I send out a piece of content, which is like, let's look, we've done a Google Analytics audit for this software house in Poland, and I send it to other Polish software houses, which are in the same spec. They all want to know that. And so it's like, I'm sending these things and then I'm getting some replies back. And it takes sometimes even 3 months to close the deal, but we just closed the deal and it was like an 8-month project. So
yeah,
on the first try, it never works sometimes, but it does work if you keep
don't forget, a lot of people think, so if you go classic SaaS business and the amounts are pretty low, like Jeroen on SalesFlare, you should have average deal size, time to close between 3 to 4 months, maybe even shorter. But as the amount raises and as the companies go bigger, the cycles will go longer. And in a lot of very large companies, and I'm thinking like Unilever, or you want to sell to InBev or one of these very large beasts, 18 months, 18 months for 100, 200K. And it's just what it is. And sometimes you can shortcut it. And it's because who you know and a referral type of business. You know the CEO, and then you can push really fast, but it's still going to take you 9 months. So when I build plans for people and when I look into business plans, I always have to, one, correct the conversion ratios because they always think it's way too high. And the second thing I do is said, listen, guys, you're calculating this wrong. It's going to take you way more time. So find a package which is cheaper, or do, like you said, an analysis or work, get a foot in the door. Whatever you do, get a foot in the door, and then you can move faster.
Yeah. I mean, so which kind of models do you work with? Let's say a direct model for a company, because we had a CRM company here from Prague, Czech Republic, and we tried directly selling it. It worked, but then we had big troubles moving away from the country, and that's where probably the partner program would help out much better. So, like, what do you see in like direct, indirect, consultative selling? Can you break that down for some people? Because many people, like I know founders of SaaS businesses who have no idea how to actually sell their product. Like, why did they get into B2B SaaS? Like, I don't understand how can they build a product and not even know nothing about it.
So I would do direct business always, let's say geographically, where I can physically go and meet, especially in the beginning. If you're early starting, they need to see you, they need to trust you, right? They need to touch you almost. It's weird, but it's kind of what it is, right? I would do indirect models once I start scaling to outside countries, for the simple reason that physically it's hard. And especially once you go up in the model, people want you to deliver. You're the software maker. They want you to promise you. Because if we go back to sales a little bit, to the steps, first one is attention. Very clearly be there with all the material you have where your prospects are. Very simple. 2, people buy because of the trust they put in you. You're the expert. You know your stuff. I'm going to buy from you. But to really accelerate it, you need to structure that. And structure means, and everybody forgets that, is to actually add a slide, or in your story, you say, like, listen, we've done 20 implementations or 100 or maybe 5, and we've seen the following pattern always works the best. this way or that way. And that gives peace of mind for executives, right? So coming back to your question, direct model in a geographic model where you can reach them. Once you see it's flowing, you start looking for partners that can do the implementation for you. They speak the local language, especially the area you're based. I'm based in Belgium, so we do have our 3-4 languages when we speak. But especially when you're based where you are, you need to have all the language, and people are people. They trust the people that are close to them and not the crazy guy sitting way, way beyond. Right?
Yeah.
So that's how I would set it up.
So the direct model is basically you have a sales force, right? And you kind of create a lead and also close it. There's no middleman there. And what is an indirect model? Like, how can you actually, what are the options there for companies? Because there's multiple,
so
right?
So there are multiple indirect models. So the first, most obvious one is that you go out and you find a partner that basically wants to sell your stuff, but does not want to do the implementation. They call it like a referral model. So basically you tell them, and it's worth between 5 to 15%. Basically they introduce you, they prove they introduce you, they get you the meeting, and then you do the meeting, right? Everybody happy, you pay them. I have lots of startups say, yeah, and they dare to ask me 10%. Say, listen, you're never able to get in without these people. Just make a referral agreement. And as the amounts go higher, of course, the discount goes lower. Right? The big mistake a lot of people make, they make an agreement and they say it's 10%. No, you got to always put in a lift saying first deal is 5%, second deal is 10%, third deal is 15%. And then they call me and say, Michael, I'm making them rich. No. You're making yourself rich, right? Because you put a time frame on it. So referral agreement is number one. Two, you get into what I call agent models. One of the things I used to scale a lot, American companies coming to Europe, and what they love is always agent models. Agent models is the following. You go to a company, most of the time they're smaller companies. What they do is they will get you to the meeting. They will guide you with the sales, but the final step, the final implementation, the final things you need to do. Agent models are very interesting from a legal point of view because there is not real liability. It's still you talking to the end user directly, you invoicing. And basically, what's that word? Somewhere between 10 and 20%, depending on the amount of work they do. Last model in indirect is what they call the real partner model or the real reselling model. Basically means they buy your software, so they send you an invoice and they resell it to their customers. So they wrap services around it, they wrap other softwares around it. Legally, it can get very messy because you don't have the direct contact. So you have to make sure that when you activate your software or your product, you get the end user's email and you check that. Because otherwise they can, and I had it once, they basically blackmailed me because they said, listen, I have 200 of your end users. I'm not going to pay you unless you give me more discount. So you can't have that. So you make a back-to-back agreement, you make sure you get the end user, and then you can resell. What's the typical amounts there in discount? You will get something between 15 to sometimes 40% if they do over 1 million or 2 million or whatever. If you look to the IBMs, the classic software companies, that's the model they apply. If you look to SaaS, it becomes messy because you have they technically don't need you, so you're more of an implementation partner. They love to work with the agent model. There is a last model, and it's called the distribution. There are two more, distribution. You go to a country and say, you are my distribution partner. They will look for resellers, etc., etc. Right? It's an extension of you. Those are bigger discounts. And then the last model is what they call OEM. Basically mean I give you my product and you wrap a layer around it. There, I would advise you to make a completely different discount structure. There, I would say, listen, let's talk about your revenue because you want your product in every single product that they sell, in every single account. So I'm going to take 1 to 3% of the total revenue. I used to do a lot of those models and it made me very rich. I mean, no, not me, the company I work for, very rich. There was one caveat there. And I give you a real example. I was in an analytics company and we were using a dashboarding software. Maybe you know it, Tableau. You have several on Tableau, click all of these. And we were doing, at a certain stage, we're paying them 800,000 to 900,000 euro per year. And I made a decision at a certain stage, listen, for that amount, I can build it myself, which was naive. by the way, because it takes you 2 years to build it. And if you want to build a real software, it's going to take you between $1 to $2.5 million to build it properly. So we kind of replaced them. But OEM is a very nice model to go. So to repeat, agent model, no, referral model, agent, reseller, distributor, and then you have the OEM agreements.
Right.
It's like a crash course on reselling business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is super interesting, right? So OEM, what does it stand for exactly? Is that
original equipped manufacturing? It came from the car industry, where if you buy a BMW, the gearbox is from a company called ZF. But if you buy a Mercedes, it's the same gearbox, right? But you don't know. So they actually wrap a layer around it. Sometimes it's just the logo, sometimes it's colors, but you never really know what's behind. And it doesn't matter, actually.
Got it.
Yeah.
So referral, I understand. Agent model, really good for SaaS. I'm not sure quite how to find these agents, because
most of the time they find you. So that's funny.
Okay.
So they find you. I'm gonna move a bit. Once you basically start building your model and you start saying, well, I closed this deal with the end user, then you'll start seeing that some of them will come to you and say, hey, your product is new or novel, or there's something really interesting. Can I sell it to a certain area? And they come. You can proactively look for them, but it's difficult. Typical agents are smaller companies between 5 to 15 people. And what you do is score to the service they sell. So they'll try and wrap you in the community.
Got it. And the partner reseller model is more for bigger guys like IBM and stuff.
You see that a lot. Like Dropbox, if you look at those guys, they're doing the same thing and they're doing a pretty good job. So
is that like an affiliate model?
Experiment. Or it's a bit an affiliate model. It gets very close to that. I tried all the models. I think now, if I had to choose one, I would probably go more for agents and referrals than for full-blown reseller models. That would be because legally it's safer and you have less risk, and always try to get the cash so that you have to pay them and not the other way around, right? Because you don't want to get into that position.
Yeah. So how did you work with over 200 companies? I mean, that's quite a lot. So
I have a multiple mixed model. So I do a lot of online.
Do you like an online course or something?
Yeah, of course. I have all the online course of all of that, but I also do a lot of online, I like real online coaching, because I have a lot of foreign companies, let's say, abroad, a lot of American, a lot of other countries. And then I basically, every 2 weeks, I have like a slot of an hour, and I explain them my model. My model is a sales sprint methodology. So we focus and we scale the whole machine. And basically, I tell them how to do it. And then they do it, and then they get tasks, and then I'm the guy that keeps pushing and pushing and pushing and faster, and they need that. So it's more of an executive coaching type of approach. The other one is where I really come in and I'm with my team and I build the entire model. It goes slower, of course. And then next to that, I do like a lot of like classroom teaching for large audiences. Right. And then it's like a model I go back. So we do like a session in a quarter. I do 4 or 5 sessions, and then each time they need to prepare stuff, and then we get the machine going.
So you're not providing services, right? They have to do the work.
What I didn't want to do anymore was, a lot of people came to me and said, Michael, can you sell it for me? No, I'll teach you how to sell it, because it has no skill. Sometimes I do interim VP of sales type of roles, but it's tough. And I don't believe you can do it in 1 day a week. You cannot run an entire sales team in 1 day a week. It's just impossible. So most of the time I get in, most of the time it's scale-ups. They're looking for money, help them get the money, somewhere tickets between $5 to $15 million. They get it in, and then I go away after 3-4 months when I have actually hired their VP of sales. So I look for the guy or girl so that they can replace me, and then they're off. And then you see them growing. Like it's really fun. I still have my first customers. I still talk to them very regularly, because sales is like an evolution. It's just not, you constantly hit new type of problems to scale. But the base you got to get right. Number one, your sales pitch has to be working. That's where everybody goes wrong.
Yeah.
And a very good simple question is, you have to answer this question. I want my customers to that's what you got to fill in. And I was at a video company at a certain stage, a company called StoryMe. I was their interim VP of sales. That's how I started. And every time when they talked to their own people, every single time they had a slide and it said, we want our customers to, and then the next slide said, win with video. And it's so simple, it's so strong, and the whole company was consistent in that message.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I learned is if you just focus on customers, like just obsession of customers, not competition or nothing, and just listening to them, you're always going to be the best. Like, just the story of Uber is interesting. Like, how could the entire taxi industry be so wrong that they never saw this?
Yeah.
Like, that's
And they're still
crazy.
wrong.
Yeah, because they never talk to the customers. So, like, that is so. Well, I know almost none of my clients talk to their clients, which is so weird as well.
Yeah.
So, are you like an investor? Or you take out the equity from these startups, or?
No. So I get hired by the VCs I mean, not most. Half of the time I get hired by the VCs that basically say, okay, Michael, we want to invest in that company, but we'll only invest if you go help them.
Yeah.
And then basically they have the money to pay me because that's the cycle. So
okay. That's pretty good.
the cycle. Yeah, and that works because I started doing a lot with startups, but they don't have money, and you it's too early sometimes. I said, guys, your idea is not there yet. You got to have a bit of money, not for me, but to scale your team and marketing and all of that. So my fastest is when they get their first A round or when they start getting a scale up, because then you can really turn the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. We work with startups where they didn't even have product market fit yet, and we're discovering their clients on their behalf. Like, that's so crazy. Like, you build a company. I'm just
But the whole model of taking equity and all of that, it's a difficult one. There are companies doing that really well. I had to question. The problem is, if you as a company, and I'll give you some advice, if one of these startups come to you and says, okay, you can get 5 or 10%, whatever equity they want to give it to you, the problem is a difficult one, because how do you measure it against time? At a certain stage, you'll be spending so much time with them, and it's going to take 3-4 years. It's a difficult question.
Yeah.
And I also want them that if they don't pay me, it's not going to work. I want them to bleed a bit. It has to hurt, because if it hurts, they'll do their best. And I've seen it. I do these sales sprint bootcamp workshops, and sometimes I invite friends, good friends of mine. I know, I said, this is going to help your business. You come for free. And it's always the people I give it for free that are not paying attention, that come late, they have no value, they leave early, and I stop doing it. Because if it doesn't hurt, you're not going to learn. Why would you do it? It has no value.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe you can talk about the methodology you mentioned before. I know that kind of your process is you help people find the niche, then figure out their pricing strategy. That's on your website, right? So then acquisition model and kind of long-term upsell strategy. So what's the methodology you were talking about before?
So one of the things I love to do is I call it, one day, I was looking into a forecast, and typically what you see in pipelines is that you see a lot of different industries. You would see like FMCG, and then you would see retail, and I said, it's not going to work. This needs focus. The problem is, fundamentally, focus is hard, because you have to say no, and there's so much opportunity, and everybody, these customers, they always promise you, work with me, and then I'll scale you internally, and it never happens, by the way. So I said, we got to do this differently. We got to do it in a sprint methodology, like Scrum, which is 2 weeks. The problem with 2 weeks is, in sales, if I call you and you don't call me back, I need time to reach you. So I call it sales sprints. And sales sprints is a concept where in 6 weeks' time, you try a market. But you start small in a niche, and then you scale it very rapidly. And we do that by hyper-personalizing our approach. So basically what I'm going to do is, let's say we go for windmill industry. I'll build a landing page for the windmill. I'll build a whole page geared around their fundamental problems. And then I'll build one piece of bait, which I'm going to use for outbound. And I'm just going to go after them in a very nice. So imagine you have a sales team of 5 people. I would do sales sprint with all 5 in different industries. So I say 80% of your time is geared around this type of industry. And sometimes it fails, which is okay, but we didn't move the whole company towards it. So when it fails, it's probably something detailed that's not right. Or for instance, I had a good example. I was doing this thing in the US, and we said LinkedIn, we're going to go for LinkedIn when I reach them. And then apparently those people, they were just not active on LinkedIn. So we ended up doing cold calling, which worked, or we did like personalized video messages, all that stuff. We just try, and then we scale very, very, very rapidly. And the mindset of doing that makes companies move much faster, by aligning then sales and marketing. That's the key, of course. I
Yeah.
do that even for large companies, by the way.
Yeah, we do the same thing exactly. We have an assessment where we create case studies or like landing pages. Once we have that, there's like we have 8 weeks to test 8 markets, and each week we just 1 week we test this one, this one, this one, this one. But all of our clients are software houses, so it's very easy for us to see what's happening. But the worst case is even after that testing period, if you say like, hey, here are 2 verticals which are getting like 50% response rate, like really cool market, and they still say like, hey, but can we go up even after these ones who are not performing? Like they are still illogical, even if you test it. Like, how do you battle that?
Yeah.
Because
It's
not enough.
inertia. Yeah, but don't forget, you're missing one thing there, is that it's inertia. If you look to corporates, the people that hired you also said some stuff to their boss, right? So you got to be careful, because they need to prove themselves. And for some weird reason, intuitively, they think, oh, we need to go there, we need to go there. You come with your data and say it's not going to work. Yeah, but let's still do that, right?
But
That's
even
how,
founders are kind of crazy sometimes.
yeah, but at the end, if you really put the data in their face, you say, it's going to come here. So one of the things they do a lot to me is they invite me to boards of larger companies. And basically the question is, Michael, if you would advise a scale up or a startup in the industry we are in, what would you do to beat us? And then I tell them a story like an hour, and then you see the whole board going quiet. They go pale and they go like, oh shit. And I said, yes, but the big difference between you, and then they go, yeah, but it's not legal and GDPR. And they come and I said, listen, you're doing this wrong. I said, it's speed. It's the one thing that can beat you. And the perfection. Trying to get stuff perfect makes you lose. You got to go faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why doing services like we do, it's sometimes kind
Why
of
hire people? Yeah.
I would much rather, we're building a platform. We're launching it this week actually, for like a sales training platform for software houses.
Yeah.
Because I just want to do the same thing as you do, kind of teach them, because it's like sometimes it's hard to do it for somebody. Cool, but maybe I have a couple of other questions. Do you have any favorite under the radar entrepreneur, maybe from your local community, who you kind of follow or admire?
Oh, there are so many. Maybe I reply something else. I think all sales guys should read a book. Let me go there. Because they all ask me sales books, and there are many very good sales books. But there is one book they should read, which explains to you the concept of funneling really deep down. And it's a book, maybe you know him, Russell Brunson, and he wrote a book called .com Secrets. And for me, it was like I did an eye opener, and I was like, I didn't sleep for 2 days. You know what? My wife hid the book because she said you need to sleep. So I bought 2 new ones too, because I knew she would find the other one. Anyway, and it really taught me like, I'm doing this all wrong, right? I gotta do the funneling thing. Even as a sales, you need to understand how to do that, and I think it's absolutely key.
Yeah, he's a marketer. He's a B2C hardcore marketer.
Yeah, it's hardcore
Nothing
B2B.
with B2B, but
yeah, and I love it, and I think that's what's changing. I also think the other thing that every sales should do is they should start building their own personal brand. I mean, if I look at what you're doing the pure thought leadership guru type of funnel, if I would follow the book.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why you do the online, because scale. I get it complete, and it works. But I'm telling to sales teams, okay, you're 10 people. All of you should start posting on LinkedIn, and you should start building your brand. 1, it makes you independent of whatever happens with the company. Companies don't like it. 2, you will have customers coming to you for expertise. They'll trust you. You'll sell more, right? That's the new type of sales approach, is the thought leadership. Just scale it. And you and I are doing the right thing. We're just crazy. We just keep up podcasts and all the stuff, and we're not afraid of what people say. But that's exactly how you win.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So do you have any favorite apps in your daily life you use? Maybe a business app or...
I'm a complete fan of Zapier. It makes my life easy, so I connect lots of stuff. I started with Mail. I'll tell you my app flow. I started with MailChimp, and then I hated it, and then I realized I started looking into marketing automation, and then I learned this tool called Autopilot. And if you combine MailChimp, Autopilot, and Zapier, you can do complete full-blown marketing automation at a really, really cheap price. Oh, hang on, sorry, something happened here. At a really, really cheap price. So those are the tools I use a lot. Calendly for email. I mean, you've been using that too. I like it. And in essence, I'm a bit of an old school guy. I like my inbox because that's my to-do list. So I made 2 inboxes because the problem is you get so much stuff in there, and I tend to want to fix everything. So I move everything away to another inbox, and then I just keep 2, 3 things that I need to do, and that keeps focus. And you're happy at the end of the day because everybody does the same thing. They make a long to-do list, and you're never done. So just take out 2. And do it, and then you feel like I've done something, right? And then you keep grinding. No other way.
Exactly. So, what are you most excited about when it comes to this kind of B2B sales? I can call it space, or like the technology. You know, there's sales enablement tools every day popping up, email automation. There's power dialers, whatever you want to call it. So, like, what do you think is going to happen in, like, say, 3 years with sales reps with all this technology?
So I think the role of sales will change dramatically. I think that there will be a lot more AI. Hopefully there will be tons of AI that's going to make my endless repetition task going to automate it. And you have tools like Convertica. I don't know if you've ever seen It's like an AI sales platform. I love that kind of stuff. I still think that the meetings will be crucial. I still think that the physical presence will be crucial. So I'm very curious to see the way they are going to interact, because it always starts with a small tool and then they build a big platform and then they need partners to build. So I'm wondering if you're going to have the massive consolidation. CRMs, 2,200 CRMs. Will they start consolidating? Will they go up into, I have no clue, honestly. What I do know is this whole thought leadership as a sales methodology is going to become more and more and more important, especially the whole trust factor, trust factor, like the personalized videos, and all the personalization needs to go up a few levels. So I'm guessing it's gonna go that direction. And for the rest, I have no clue. I'll keep trying, but at the end of the day, we're still mammals. We're still human behavior. Basic psychology keeps working, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. So I have my last question. This is kind of a story. And basically, imagine you got a check from your government and you owe them all the money, everything, every asset you have will be freezed. And basically, because of some tax problem or something. And you have one day, you have a friend who's a tech entrepreneur. He doesn't have any sales background. And you have one day to teach this person. He has a presentation next day in like an enterprise company. And you have one day to kind of coach him through, like, how could he handle that meeting? And basically, if he sells the solution, he's going to give you 50% commission on the deal, which will help you repay your debt to the government. So what would you teach in one day, let's say, a person who has never been in B2B sales? What are some top 3 pieces of advice you would give this person?
It's funny because the story you do, it's one of my classes, actually. You have one day. How do you fix this? So nice. I give you the perfect flow for a sales pitch, right? First slide, your logo, add some social proof, meaning social proof, logos of references, or say stuff like plus 250 companies, whatever, right? First slide. Second slide, what is the big problem? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, no more, plus a visualization of the problem. If you do not do this, this is going to happen. 3, what I do then is you got to deepen that problem. So there are 2 ways of doing that. Either you really say, if you do not solve these problems, this is really what's going to happen, or you do something other. The solution to those 2 problems is the following. And then you see everybody in the room go like this. And then I say, it's not going to work, my friends. The true solution is something else, right? So I killed all my competition in that one. And only then I will say, I exist to solve these problems. Because when you start talking with yourself, it doesn't work. You first got to give the context of your existence. Then I explain what it does. Then I will explain a structure slide. If we work together, this is how it works. And I will wrap up with a use case, saying if you've done all of this, that is the impact. And my last slide is next actions, 1, 2. Because everybody does the same thing. They go like, yeah, any questions? And then this last slide stays there. But if you imagine the meeting takes then another 20 minutes on whatever topic, I have their eyeballs on my next actions, always do. And what is your 2? You never close in one meeting. You always need to get to the next meeting. So your actions are inspiration, education. Let's do an analysis. Let me give you 20 use cases. You'll get the second meeting. you'll win.
Yeah, that's the biggest mistake, not getting the second meeting always.
Yeah, and leave the next action slide. And I tell it to the people like this. Yesterday I did a speech for like, I think, 150 people, and I said, when I walk out of this room and I ever see you present and you have a slide that says questions, I'm going to stand up and shout at you. Because
Nice.
it's next actions that drive the business. By the way, one last final advice, because I need to run actually. When I do a pipeline forecast, a review, I do something else than what most people do. Most people will actually do this pipeline and then they'll say, yeah, you have the band criteria, all the sales methodologies. I say something else. I say, so why will your customer buy now? Most people can't answer that one. And then you have a debate pipeline. You've got to invoke the sense of urgency. Why now? And the second question is, what's the next action you control? That's it. If you start asking those questions, your system will change. You will go 10 times faster.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, Michael. So thank you very much for stopping by. Where can people check you out if they want to connect with you?
So there is lots of things you can check out. First, you have the website. You have michaelhumblet.com. You can find on YouTube a whole channel filled with content. Second, find me on LinkedIn. See what I do. I do tons of experiments on LinkedIn that scale very nicely. I have Schools of Sales, schoolofsales.org with lots of lessons. And the final one is my company's KeyOMatic. Comes from automating chaos. KeyOmatic would be a cool game character, by the way, chaomatic.com. So just type in my name and see what happens and see because I believe in walking your talk. So I'll always, whatever I told you today, I will have tried, I will have tested, I will have seen.
Awesome. So guys, go check out Michael and hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you very much, Michael, for stopping by, and see you later.
See you later. Bye. Cheers.